Hello, my name's Jack. I'm the Riverlands Ranger, as Nigel said. Before I kick on with beavers, I'll just pick up on what Liz said about the grey long-eared bats and some of the habitat improvement works we've done at Honeycutt. We've been working quite hard on it's really interesting, I didn't realise they were meadow specialists, and we've been working quite hard on our grassland restoration over the last few years, and with Selworthy Farm and Horner Farm as well. And yeah, hopefully we'll see more of them in the future if that's the case, because we've got some big plans to restoring lowland meadows and yeah, getting some wildflowers back in the vale, which would be lovely. So right, back to beavers. So the reason I'm talking about beavers, although this picture is of a beaver swimming around in the day, is that they're generally nocturnal species. They will come out in the summer just before sunset, so you can catch them sort of 7, 8 o'clock at night swimming around in their ponds. Yeah, so I've been working for the National Trust for 5.5 years now. I'm now on the Riverlands project as the ranger, so I'm practical on the ground, looking after the enclosures. And the Riverlands project is aiming to sort of enhance our river corridors, and it's sort of the next step on from the DEFRA flood project, which Nigel was a part of a few years back. Yeah, so I'll skip through. Right, so the story so far. So I'll start a little bit talking about the history of beavers. So beavers vanished from the UK approximately 400 years ago. It's a little bit, we're a little bit unsure of the exact dates. There's some brilliant quotes from Gerald of Wales, and this was in 1180, where he sort of suggests that the Tavai, as a singular particularity, being the only river in Wales or even England that still has beavers on it. And if that was the case in 1180, I'll be amazed that they were hanging on until 400 years ago. But we don't have any definite records. So beavers disappeared because we hunted them. We hunted them to extinction. We hunted them for food, for fur, and their castoreum gland. They were a valuable asset. You know, there was a time in the UK where a beaver was worth 10 times that of a wolf pelt, which speaks volumes for how few of them there were. So after much debate and sort of assessment, the National Trust decided to bring beavers back to Exmoor. So we did that in January 2020. So there's 2 pairs of beavers living on Exmoor. And this was the first beaver release that the National Trust has done. I use the word release lightly, considering they are still in enclosures, but yes, that's really exciting. So beavers as an animal, they're mammals. Beavers can live for up to 14 years in the wild. I mean, in captivity, they can live much longer, so I'm sure there is exceptions to that rule. Adult beavers are adults at about 2 to 3 years of age. They can breed from 2 years, assuming they've had a relatively easy go of it through childhood. They're completely herbivorous, which is a shock to some people. People think they eat fish, but they don't. Their feeding habits do change throughout the seasons. Their main food in sort of spring and summer, it can be up to 90% terrestrial and aquatic vegetation. So that's literally things like water plants, bramble, marsh marigolds, water dropwort, anything they can get their hands on. They like to scrunch things up into little balls and pop them in their mouths, which is quite fun to watch. As we move into the colder months and that vegetation dies back, they start feeding on timber. So this is where their felling activities come in. Beavers are, generally speaking, they favour certain species. So their favourite trees include willow, aspen, poplar. The ones at Honeycutt seem to particularly like young oak trees and holly, which is interesting. It's good to know. So yeah, that's the diet. So the family unit, beavers are monogamous, so they pair for life unless they get broken up, one dies, or there's a territorial dispute. And the adults can have one set of kits per year in April or May. They can have up to 4 kits, but it's more usual for them to have 2. These kits then stay with the family for the next 2 years. And then at that point, when they become adults, they disperse off looking for their own territories. The kits that are sort of post 1 year old will help to feed the next generation of kits. So it's quite a nice tight knit family unit, which makes for quite a successful species, really. They're the second largest rodent in the world, which I thought was a pretty interesting fact. It's not something I necessarily knew. And they're also, they're a lodge building animal. So their home is famously a mound of sticks and mud. It can just be a hole in a bank if it's unnecessary for them to build these extravagant buildings. But it's anywhere where they've got access from the water into their lodge and they feel safe from predators. So moving on. So I've got a video here, hopefully it will play, of one of our beavers. This is Yogi. He lives in Paddocks Wood. Lost my mouse. There you go. Hopefully you can see that. So why have we introduced beavers to the Honeycutt Estate? What was the point? You know, they've been missing for 400 years. Everyone was getting on fine. So the reason we've done that is because these animals are ecosystem engineers. They change their habitat in a way that is, apart from humans, probably unparalleled. So it all fits into the National Trust strategy of Land, Outdoors and Nature, which is about improving our landscapes for nature and people. But beavers enhance biodiversity. These guys famously build dams, and the dam building creates wetlands which are very difficult to replicate without those animals. We can block rivers, but we're not there every day working on these structures and maintaining them. The Beaver Ponds are so why do they build ponds? So the ponds allow beavers to feel safe in their environment. Beavers want access to deep water. 70 centimeters is sort of the average depth of a beaver pond. And at that point, they seem to stop trying to raise water levels. They feel safe enough and they allow them to escape predators. The predators I'm talking of were historically bears, lynx, and wolves, but young beavers are still vulnerable to things like foxes, otters, herons, and there's even been a few examples in Europe of beavers being eaten by pike, which I thought was quite exciting. So not only do these help beavers feel safe from predators, they can disappear into the water, they also allow them easier access moving through their environment. They're adapted to this wetland system and they can access their food in a safe way. The reason we want them is not only is to create these ponds, is to manage our water in a more natural way. The water, these ponds become living structures, sediment builds up behind them, regeneration of plants and other animals. These pools become brilliant spawning areas for fish. During low flow, trout use the pools as refugia because their water levels are quite often maintained at a steady level through the beavers' activities. They also can stabilize and store water to stop flooding. And they've got benefits in terms of our climate as well, in terms of carbon capture and other bits. And they're a really brilliant way of capturing runoff from farms as well. So our topsoil that's currently disappearing out to seas can be captured behind these dams, settled out, and we don't lose all our soil out to sea, which is brilliant. So I've just got a few videos to show you. This is Yogi again. He's a very busy beaver. The way they build dams is by not only using sticks, but using a huge amount of sediment and mud, and they'll use stones as well where mud is in short supply. But this is Yogi just pushing some soil up onto one of his dams to increase the levels. So that's Yogi doing his thing. We'll skip on. Yogi's partner is an animal called Grills, who's had a bit of a rough start. Her mom passed away, unfortunately. We've had her since she was 4 months old. She's now 2 years old and is paired off with Yogi. And this is her when she was younger, some daytime footage, which I thought would be quite nice to share. And the final video I've got for you guys is from, well, the 3rd of, so 4 nights ago. And this is our other enclosure. This is Bulrush and Lily, who I think have possibly just given birth to kits. And you can see their hole behind them in the bank where their lodge is. And this is just some grooming, so you can see that they're quite complex animals with quite interesting relationships with each other. And that's all I've got for you guys, unfortunately. So just in summary, you know, what I'm hoping to achieve with the beaver reintroduction is that we create some new habitats that we've been missing from this landscape for a long time. These flooded woodlands the animals can create, which will, you get amazing structure through the beavers felling activity when the trees regenerate and coppice. More light in the woodlands, which improves the ground flora, so you get more interest in aquatic vegetation. The ponds and the wetland systems are more diverse and they're larger, which supports more invertebrates, more amphibians. You then get herons and other species moving in. They're great for fish. You get large, because of the amount of invertebrates living in the soils behind the beaver dams, you get a rise in trout weight gain and other species like that. And the deadwood created by the beavers in terms of the flooding activity, where trees have gone from dry land to a flooded environment, is brilliant for woodpeckers, owls, and bats. So yeah, thank you for listening to my presentation.